A good place to start with our tutorials is to have a look at the actual asset that we will be using through this series. This is obviously a very good practice, not just for this tutorial, but for any work where it might be that the assets are being provided by modeling or by rigging, and us as CFX TDs or TechAnim TDs, we might have to understand the asset and work with it. So let's begin by having a look at the joints structure. Obviously, we are going to focus only on the arm of the character. So this is a part of the joint hierarchy that we have. So we have the chest, we have the clavicle, we have the scapula, the arm, the forearm, the wrist, and all of the fingers. We can also see that we have two other types of joints here. We have these joints here, which are utility joints, will be used to create locators and sensors to keep track of the biomechanical activity of the body. So in this case, for instance, from this joint to this joint, we will create a sensor to keep track of the activation and the flexing of the arm. Just an example. Then we have another type of joint, which are anatomical joints, like these ones. And these joints will be used to emulate the kind of behavior that we have in our own body. So we want a believable and realistic behavior of the forearm, for instance. So the relationship between the ulna joint and the radius joint. And to achieve this, we need this extra rig with a series of aim constraints. Now, how you want to create your utility joints, these don't have to be joints. I mean, you can use locators or any other way that you prefer to describe this information. And also when it comes to anatomical joints, it's recommended, because if you don't have anatomical behavior of your joints and your skeleton, then it will be really, really hard to nail a realistic behavior for your simulation. But it's up to you how to do all of this. This is just how we do it. Doesn't have to be how you do it. So now let's have a look at the mummy. What is the mummy? The mummy is a single piece geometry, low polygonal one, that we use to basically transfer the motion from the joints to the skeleton of the character. It's low polygonal, so that all of our queries for closest points, attachments, etc. are very, very fast. But also is single piece of geometry, so that we get no popping for sliding constraints. Okay, and that is very, very important, because otherwise we have to fiddle around with maps and controls to avoid those poppings that otherwise having holes and gaps between the different bones can generate. So it's single piece geometry. Is like, we call it mummy because, yeah, it's sort of, we're mummifying basically the character so that it resembles the bone structure, but without the gaps and holes. The anim skin. One more thing about the mummy. The mummy is rigged so that we have, it's skinned basically. We are using a skin cluster to rig it to the joints, and also to avoid, because it's low polygonal, we don't want to get too many aberrations. So we also have a delta mesh on top of it, just to make sure that everything is smooth and we don't have too crazy points moving around. We don't want a harsh and sharp deformation. We want it to be smooth. So delta mesh is helping us with that. Anim skin. The anim skin is is basically just a linear skin cluster, actually extremely rough, as you can see here. But it's basically, yeah, just dropping a linear skin cluster on top of the skin to follow the joints that we saw before. So here it is. Yeah, so obviously we have no twist joints here for the forearm. That would basically be into your animation rig, and we're not going to take care of that into this tutorial series because it has nothing to do with Adonis. Moving forward, then we have our locators. So this is where we will place the locators that we will we will create to keep track of the biomechanical actions of the character, but we're also storing in here some of the locators that we use for the forearm behavior. And then we have the muscles here. So it's a low polygonal geometry of the muscles. We don't really need super detailed geometry, really. We just want to get the behavior of the muscles, but nothing stops you from creating high detailed muscles. It's just the trade-off of the details that you will get compared to the speed of the simulation. We believe that it's much better to work with low resolution muscles that gets you there as fast as possible instead of dealing with specific details of the separation between the different different parts. For instance, the two halves of a bicep and stuff like that. Okay. Then we have the glue group, which is empty, okay? Because that gets created by Adonis itself. The glue group will contain like the combined muscles with attachments across muscles to make them work together, emulating what you will get out of the internal fascia, which is the fascia that connects all of the muscles together. Then we have the fascia layer, which sits basically, it's a version of the skin that is fit to lay on top of the muscles and the mummy. Now we don't have a pectoralis, so obviously this area here will not really be laying on top of a muscle and will not really follow the behavior, the simulation of any muscle. So you might see this area flapping around during our tutorial, and that's totally fine. It's only because we don't have the pectoralis in this tutorial series. Then we have the fat. The fat is exactly the same topology as the fascia, just laying a little bit over the fascia. Now, the thickness of the area between the fascia and the fat determines the thickness of the fat layer, okay? So all of this area will be filled with fat volume. Then we have the sim skin, which is the final skin that we will be simulating. And ultimately, we have the render skin, which is what we're going to render out. So without further ado, let's begin. So in the next video, what we're going to do is that we're going to focus on the brachialis muscle. So we will create the sensor for the brachialis muscle. The brachialis muscle is mostly involved in the action of flexing the arm. So we will creating the flexing sensor and the brachialis muscle setup. Thank you.